I wanted to talk about desire because desire, ambition, goals, achievements, that's always been one of my largest perceived struggles on this path, on this journey. And I think it's partially learned. It's partially learned from growing up. I think that ambition it's an interesting one because there must be some genetic and environmental causes that go into building some of the craving and desire. Let me go back. I think that there are personality differences, there are cultural influences around desires, geographic. There's a slew of different things that can influence your experience of desire. Recently, my experience of desire has been coming out in the form of ambition, but experiencing frustration because there is this, let's say there's this perceived ability or this perceived talent that I would like to work toward or I would like to practice. And this is for writing, like insert whatever you're ambitious about and replace this with writing as a practice. But for me, it's been writing. For you, it could be anything. But when there is this deep-rooted desire to, let's say, achieve something, when there's an inner conflict that I didn't quite understand, because anytime I read about suffering, dukkha, it's always, well, craving is suffering. And so in my head, desire is kind of a form of craving. And so this is suffering. But the conflict within me was around the fact that I could just not let it go. Like I can't, unfortunately, just tell myself and convince myself that I don't care about writing and my goals around writing, or it could be certain achievements. Again, any kind of ambition, which is very particular to you, and this could be your own flavor or brand of desire. It's just something that comes up, it arises. And at one point I started to villainize it because not only was I getting frustrated that I wasn't able to achieve the perceived desire, or this desire that I'm brewing up, in that I want to be a better writer, I want to be able to produce essays that are eloquent, or I want to be a better product manager, or I want to learn more about ML systems, I want to dive deeper here, or I want to start community, I want to start hosting events. All of these slews of desires and goals, and experiencing I've read, like, I know in psychological terms it could be dubbed as like cognitive dissonance. It's like your mind is here, maybe your body is somewhere else, but there was always this tension around achievement, and then this frustration every time you go to engage in something that you deeply care about, like grappling with the talent gap that you're currently at versus where you want to be. And I would come back and I would read things such as entering flow states and thinking, okay, when I'm participating in this craft, I'm going to rethink the way I'm going to think differently about how I'm engaging in this craft, and instead have it be an arena for flow and play, and thus joy. And so that was working for a bit. I was entering flow states, especially when I'm writing analog, and when I'm writing as opposed to on the computer typing, I'm able to predispose the likelihood of entering that state more than just sheer frustration and disappointment and like this innate fire of like, I must do this thing and I must do it well. But at a certain point that stopped working too. And so I was disappointed, not just in this gap of like talent, perceived talent, but also then frustrated at not being able to ultimately let go of this kind of, I perceived it as like a superficial desire, just like an ambitious, lofty thing that is always going to predispose me of like this is always going to result in suffering, period, and pain and like torture and inner turmoil and criticism and critique, like inner critique, and it's going to fuel this thing that is never ultimately going to stop. So long as I'm alive, so long as I'm producing, I don't know if this will stop. And I was really like deep in this, and it's interesting because I feel like you come and you go. It depends on the season of your life and what it is that you're doing and what it is that you're trying to achieve. Like, why are you doing the thing that you are doing, and why do you care? That I feel like this experience of desire will come and it will go. Like it will come in waves. Some days and some experiences, it is a lot more, it's a lot more prevalent, and then other days it's non-existent, and you're able to just create and not be so hard on yourself and have fun with it and it be playful and light and joyous. I think the biggest, and I'm stealing this from I'm stealing this from a jhana talk, a dharma talk that I recently came across, which unlocked insight in me that I want to return back to, because, and I'll quote the video. So he says in the video, desire is hard. If I say yes to desire, I say yes to the Buddha's analogy, a burning coal. Either I throw that burning coal away, or I learn how to relate to it, and I tolerate my burning. And where there is burning, there's beauty, blessing, and gift. And that talk, and just separating the two experiences that desire appears to bring up, which is this kind of negative comparative loop and this almost parasitic negative framing of the self, which is dukkha, and it is suffering. And then there's the other aspect of desire, which is a precursor to creation and creativity and eros and libido and energy and flow, and that kind of comes hand in hand with your karmic predisposition of desire. Now, I feel like it's largely karmic because to some degree, we don't have a choice over what we're deeply passionate about. And instead of running away from that and running away from the pain that comes with having this passion and having something that you deeply care about that is beyond just yourself, we must relate to it differently. And that's the insight that I unlocked from this Dharma talk, is how can we relate lovingly to our desire in such a way that we don't crave it to be any differently, but we lean in lovingly to the experience as it arises, and we simultaneously let go of it as it is coming up. So the practice, my interpretation is the practice is less about absolving desire and more about acknowledging desire as it comes up, having the awareness to know that this does not associate with who you are. Like, there isn't that desire to link this thing and attach this thing to your sense of self and identity, and relax into the desire as it is coming up. And that to me felt like all this tension that I experienced every time a desire or a wave or an ambition or a next new goal came up, and I would tense up and think, oh my God, like, why can't I just be happy with my life as it is, what I have now, and just be content with things as they are? All of that just melted away because it was like I'm no longer relating to that desire, in that I am experiencing it because something innate in me feels that there is lack, but instead because it is just happening, and you just experience it, and it's going to change and it's going to shift, and your set of desires now are not going to be the same set of desires that you have tomorrow, that you have next week, that you have next year, that you had in the past as well. But that's all part of the, I was going to say the game, because I think that maybe that's a healthy reframing of it. Like, that's all part of the way that desire is inviting you to play. And so that's what I wanted to talk about. I don't think that it's possible to squash the experiential happening of a desire, of a new ambition, or of a goal. I think that's something deeply innate to humans, and it's just our current cultural lens that has emphasized a lot of desire and a lot of individuality and has become very goal-oriented. And I think we all, it's like when you do this inner work, there's this collective acknowledging of, okay, being super goal-oriented isn't maybe the healthiest or isn't maybe the best way to experience meaning and happiness, etc. in life. But listen, this is just your cultural milieu. Like, this is not something that can be helped up until this point. And that's part of the karmic, again, it's coming up, it's happening. So what are you going to do? You're going to, you can't go back and reorient and recondition yourself from way back when to prevent and stop the desire or the ambition that's happening now. And so knowing that, what we can become more empowered by in noticing that and being aware of that is not berating ourselves with lack or with a newfound desire that happens to spring up. It's more in leaning in and understanding either why or being able to more beautifully relate to the desire as it's happening. So, yeah, I'll just reread this quote. Either I throw that burning coal away, or I learn how to relate to it and I tolerate my burning. And where there's burning, there's beauty, blessing, and gift. So that's all I wanted to say. Don't villainize your desires as it's happening, because it's not actually in any teachings on any paths, and it's actually not. It's like this lesson of desire is very tricky because it's easy to dismiss and villainize and ignore our desires and compress them and suppress them and stifle them. And when you talk about the passions in these, spiritual conversations and in any of these therapeutic conversations, sometimes the passions can be seen as like a net negative thing, but there is nothing negative about your experience of the passions of desire and of this burning something innate in you that wants to do things. So let's celebrate those things as they're happening, acknowledge them, love them, and have them be guides to love ourselves more and to be happy and proud of ourselves and all of the set of experiences that we had to go through to get to this place today make us who we are. And so, yeah. So may you be happy. May you be free of suffering. And may you be filled with peace and joy.